Hi, I am the 50s Kid. Today's video is about how to change the tie rods on an E46 BMW. So you want to come in here and check the tire once the car is jacked up and on jack stands. Grasp the tire at 3 and 6 and wiggle back and forth. Basically in and out this way. And if you can see movement like you're seeing here, that's the tie rods. That's most likely the tie rods. If you grasp at 12 and 6 and you do the same thing, if there is movement there, it's most likely a wheel bearing. It could be other things though. It could be like lower control arm bushings. I have another video on that on an X5, so check that out. But this is definitely tie rods, and I will show you from the other side what it looks like. So in my particular case, you can actually see the tie rods moving around. That's because I didn't have a clunk yet. I'm basically catching this problem before it gets to the clunk phase. But you can see that I've got play in the tie rod right there. And you shouldn't have any play at all. It should be absolutely stiff. You should not be able to move it. So this is a sign that my tie rods are going bad. And that's basically why I'm fixing them, because this is definitely going to turn into a clunk eventually. First step is to get the tie rod end off. And before I do that, I'm going to put the key in the ignition, turn it to the accessory position, and then turn the wheel all the way out, all the way to the right, because I'm working on the passenger side. Just gives me a little bit better access. There we go. This is a 19mm bolt. Actually, I believe it's an 18. Yeah. It is an 18, but a 19 did work. If you can't get that bolt free, if it's rusted, spray some PV Blaster. And if you still can't get it after that, you're going to need oxyacetylene to get it warm. You'll want to warm up the nut when you do that. But you know what, if you have oxyacetylene, I think you already know that. Now, you could use a pickle fork to do this, but why bother doing that if you have a nice big hammer? What you need to do is you want to hit the thing that it goes through, that the bolt goes through. You want to shock it loose. You got to get as big and heavy a hammer as you have. This is a really big one. And just whack it. Keep whacking it till it drops free. There you go. And now I'm deaf. As you can see, my steering boot is torn. Both of them were torn, and I knew that, so I remembered to order new ones. I actually ordered a kit that had both tie rods and boots, and it was actually cheaper that way. Boots are actually pretty expensive on their own. You want to get these ring clamps off, and you just stick a screwdriver in and pop them out like that. So they can be reused, but my boots came with new clamps. They're not the same clamps, but a new sort of clamp that you don't need a special tool to get closed. So I'm going to use those. It doesn't really matter. I mean, you could even use like a zip tie. Zip ties don't rust. If you couldn't, or if your boot wasn't torn and you're going to reuse it, you would carefully pull it forward like that to expose this end, and you'll need an adjustable wrench. 12-inch ought to do it. Gotta get the right angle so I can whack this with my hand. There we have it. Now you can just spin this off. You can see that there's like quite a bit of free play in this joint. There was no knocking in it yet. It's not loose enough to knock, but you know, it's on its way. I probably could have reused this and just replaced the tie rod. I could have reused this end and replaced the tie rod end. I could reuse the other part of the tie rod. It's a little cheaper just to replace the tie rod end, but you know, I got a whole assembly. It was just kind of easier that way. Now, if you're just doing the tie rod end, you would leave this part attached and you would just loosen the nut here and take the tie rod off. If you're doing it that way, what you want to do is you want to count the number of turns that you make as you remove it, and the second it's removed, that's how many turns you're going to need to count when you put the new one back on. That'll keep your alignment somewhat close to what it was before, and it'll at least allow you to drive the car safely to the alignment shop. In my particular case, since I'm not reusing the boot, since it's already destroyed, I'm just going to cut the boot off. So make sure you check and see how your new boot goes on first, how it fits. Basically, my new boot comes with this little rubber thingy here, and in comparison to the old boot would have basically, you would take the two ends apart, and the old boot would have slipped over the rod like that first before you put it back together. But this one, you just slip this little rubber thing and it's going to go there in between those two parts. And I'll be able to get the boot on from this end, so I can actually put the boot up on the car and slip the rod in that way. But you know, if it was the old boot, I would have put the boot on this way, and then I'd be peeling the boot back when I tighten this and then peeling it back that way. So you get the idea. But you definitely need to open the rod or unthread the rod first before you do that, and put the nut and the collar back on. And the tapered end of the column goes out, or the spacer, little tapered end goes out because it pinches down over, pinches this, and that makes the threads pinch tighter. That's what locks it. So now I'm going to take the old tie rod, put these close together, and I've made sure that these are basically aligned, that, you know, whichever orientation my new tie rod was, because this one's a little stiffer, this is really loose, and you know, I can bend it a little easier on the old one. So I just made sure to match them. That way when I'm eyeballing it, when I'm trying to make sure that these are aligned perfectly on center with the bolts on center, when I come to this end, what I want to do is match these two. Match those two ends right there. So we can see that it's actually sticking out too far, so I just want to turn it in. This, of course, is not going to be a perfect alignment, by the way. You're still going to need to go get your car aligned, but at least this will get you there without causing any major tire damage or anything like that. I think that's good enough. So right here, we're going to come and lock the nut in place. You need 2 wrenches of appropriate size. This is where you grab on and hold, right here. And then you just come in and look at that. There. Just tight enough so that it won't move and won't turn around and stuff when you're spinning it on. I'm gonna slip my boot over my tie rod. I'm actually gonna slip this little collar down. I'll slip the boot over the tie rod this way, compress it, and then, as you can see, I've already retracted. I've already turned the steering wheel back to about center. That's retracted it a little bit, and that's giving me room, clearance to actually spin the tie rod on. Otherwise, the knuckle's kind of in the way. And I've already made sure that I figured out how I'm going to put my clamps on. I'm going to be able to slip them over the end of the tie rod. If yours aren't going to be done that way, then you need to make sure to put the clamps on somehow. You know, before, just put them on wherever you need them before you do this, because if you can't get them on after it's all tight, you're gonna have to take everything apart again, and that would suck. Come in here and tighten this. I don't know what the torque spec is, but I also don't know how I would torque it anyway, so I'm just gonna get it really tight. Okay, so I did get that boot on there. It was pretty difficult, but I kind of used the screwdriver to sort of help pry it around just carefully, and got it on there finally. So now I've got my big ring clamp. Get it all in the right position here. And this one you just kind of pull. And it tightens up. Pull hard, go back this way. And we need to bend those two fins in. Use little needle nose pliers. Bend those little fins over. Then I'll use my snips to snip off the excess, and then finally I'll bend that back over like that. That's it. I'm going to do the other side now. Having boot trouble today. There we go. And yeah, it looks like this ring clamp is just a little too small as it is, so I'll open it up like that. Just barely, but not quite enough for my liking, so I'll just use one layer. It doesn't really matter. Pull it tight, come back this way. There. So now, get the tie rod end back up through the knuckle. Use a new lock nut. Just make sure it stays locked. And these new lock nuts are actually 19s, not 18s, so. Now, the torque spec for this is about 33 foot-pounds, but if you just kind of go pretty tight, if I'm not mistaken, you might not even need a torque wrench. Let's see. Yeah, see? I was right at 33 already, probably a little past it. So, that's it. Well, that was pretty easy. I actually did the other side first. This was the second side. I'll put the wheels back on now, torque them to 88 foot-pounds, and then I'll go get an alignment. Thanks for watching.